Well, one major out-of-the-box change has been a few years ago when we had our Deputy Executive Director announce his retirement. Now, I had come into the organization and inherited this structure where we had a Deputy Executive Director, and we're an organization of about 17 full-time equivalents, and I didn't really feel that our staff was large enough to justify continuing a Deputy Executive Director, although, of course, he was a very competent individual and no reflection on his capabilities or skills, but I just felt that we could sort of restructure the organization and bring us in a direction where we previously had not spent as much time as we really needed to, and that is in the area of government affairs. So while sort of government affairs and advocating for funding for medical and dental research was very much a part of our organization and part of the job responsibilities of this Deputy Executive Director, we restructured it so that we would no longer have the deputy but have somebody totally dedicated to that. So we then restructured the staff to have a Director of Government Affairs. That's one example. And that was a major change for us. We had had that previous sort of staff alignment for probably about 11 or 12 years. So that was a bit of a major change for the organization that we were able to lead the boards through. Another example that comes to mind is also revolving around the retirement of our Director of Publications, who had actually been with our organization for over 30 years. And we have a scholarly publication, and we were a self-published scholarly journal called the Journal of Dental Research. It's the #1 journal in dental and craniofacial research by a number of different metrics. And we had to really make a decision of whether we were going to be able to replace this individual or whether we should restructure the way we handled our scholarly publication. So obviously with the co-leadership of our board of directors, we were able to bring in a scholarly publishing consultant to really look at how we currently managed our publication and bring the information that was needed to the board to make a decision of whether we should continue in that same vein or whether we should be looking towards partnering with a commercial publisher, a commercial organization, to handle the printing or the business side of the journal, while of course we would retain the the scholarly content aspect of the journal. And that is the direction that the board ended up going. And so it was a multi-year process of one just coming to that decision point of yes, we want to work with a commercial publisher, and then the next step was developing the RFPs so that we could get bids from different commercial publishers, and then making the decision of which commercial publisher we would be going to. And then once that decision was made, the transition, which was another 12-month period of time of transitioning from being self-published to working with a commercial publisher. The third area that comes to mind, and just some really change in the way we have done business historically, we are a research organization, and we're very much led by our investigator-led research. We've never, as an organization, had a defined research agenda because we feel that is best left with our members and with our funders. We're not really funders of research. We're really just an organization of dental and craniofacial researchers. Well, a few years ago, one of our board members, he was president-elect at the time, had really challenged the board and really the entire membership on the fact that our organization needed to be more proactive in assisting in developing a research agenda that would help address inequalities, particularly inequalities as it relates to oral health. So this was a major shift in our thinking and the way that we do business, in that we had a major initiative to come up with a research agenda for addressing a very specific problem, which is the oral health inequalities that exist both within countries as well as between countries all around the world. So that too was a major change both for the board and the staff in moving that project forward. The payoff in terms of having a dedicated person towards government affairs has really increased our voice and our presence in the Washington, D.C. area as it relates to health research advocacy. We now have a much stronger partnership with a number of other organizations that are involved in health and health research advocacy. Other organizations, sister organizations to ours in the dental field as well as in the medical research advocacy field. And by having that stronger presence, we've been able to be at the table in different and help influence policy, both from the nonprofit organizations in terms of how we go about advocating for medical research and medical research funding, and even on the Hill, an example would be in 2006 when Congress reauthorized the National Institute of Health. We were able to get our views known there, and as a organization that focuses primarily on one of the 27 different institutes and centers, that's one of the smaller institutes and centers, the National Institute of Dental and Craniofacial Research, we had sort of a different role to play in that process. And there was a number of other organizations that we partnered with in terms of making sure that in that reauthorization process, the voice of the research community that is represented by some of the smaller institutes had their voice heard as well. And we were able to be very effective in that process. I think if we had been under the old structure of our organization where we did not have a dedicated FTE towards government affairs, we would not have been as effective in that discussion. So that was a major payoff to our, not only to our association, but to our members in the entire dental and craniofacial research community. The payoff for partnering with a commercial organization for our scholarly journal, the Journal of Dental Research, has really been twofold. One, by partnering with a commercial organization within scholarly publications, the field is really moving towards what's referred to as these big deals, or these big consortia deals, where commercial publishers will go to medical libraries with a whole package of journals. And the medical library will purchase this entire package. Well, as a sole self-publishing journal, we were never able to be part of those discussions. But by partnering with a commercial organization, we're now at the table, and we've really been able to expand the reach of our journal by partnering with a commercial publisher for the journal. That's been one payoff, and the other payoff is the incredible efficiencies that we've been able to realize by working with a commercial publisher that's publishing 500 other scholarly publications. So everything in terms of layout and copy editing and the printing and shipping and all the online infrastructure that is needed in today's scholarly publication, much more efficient way to do it, which translates to the bottom line. So we're actually able to realize a higher surplus for the organization by working with a commercial publisher than we did when we were self-publishing. And the payoff in terms of having a much stronger presence on developing a research agenda to address global oral health inequalities has been bringing us to the table at the international level, where we partner with organizations like the World Health Organization, the Oral Health Program within WHO, as well as some other dental organizations like the FDI, World Dental Federation, that we're able to be at the table of these international discussions, and really it elevated IADR's stature in that we were taking this very serious issue of oral health inequalities very seriously ourselves and developing a research agenda to attempt to reduce those inequalities. I think what the Global Oral Health Inequalities project did is it shifted the vision that people had of IADR from just a research organization where people gathered and presented their research or published their research in our journals to an organization that really cared about making sure that our research was then implemented, that we were helping facilitate the communication of our research into actual improvements in oral health worldwide. So it really elevated the vision that folks had of IADR really around the world. So I think that's been a key payoff for the organization by being more active in developing that research agenda. Well, I think the biggest challenge with all of these initiatives, and I'm sure everybody addresses this, is inertia. The inability to change, the acceptance of the status quo, people not liking change, the response of doing things because, quote unquote, that's the way we've always done it. That has been the single biggest obstacle to any of these changes, and I think I would guess in life, anyone's running any organization finds that change is difficult. People don't like change. And you really have to be out in front in articulating a vision of where we're going and why this is going to be better for our members, better for staff personally by doing things in a different way, and getting people past that fear of change. I think, thinking of it just on a staff level, anytime you start discussing change, the immediate reaction is, I'm already working 24/7, now you want me to do this additional stuff. So they always view it, or not always, but they oftentimes will view it as, well, this is going to be additional work for me personally, without really thinking it through that actually by doing things in a different way and by doing things perhaps in a more efficient way, that's going to be a better way to accomplish our goals and may actually be a more efficient use of staff time and really possibly even allow for staff to be addressing other issues as well. So I think it's really, it's something you cannot discount. It's something you can't ignore. You really have to, you may have a terrific vision of where you want to take the organization. The board may also have that vision should also have that vision of where we're heading, but you can't get past the fact that change is difficult and you have to stay on top of that topic so that you're really walking people through and that they understand the change, they understand the need for the change, and they're in, at least they're agreeing with the need for that change and they're behind it. Now there are instances where you may come across an individual or group of individuals who are so resistant and intransigent to change that they're not going to help, that they're going to not be on that moving train. And there are, unfortunately, other solutions for staff like that are not moving forward. And we've been very fortunate to have very, very few of those over the last 10 years or so with this organization. It's a little bit more challenging when you're dealing with board members, single or a couple, and I think that the way to overcome that is the board meetings themselves. If you've got a board of 15 individuals, 12 or 13 of whom want to take the organization in this direction because of previously articulated vision, you may have 2 or 3 that are not quite on board yet, but I think just the weight of having the entire board moving in that direction will bring folks along. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is you can't wait for 100% of, say, staff or 100% of members or 100% of any organization to be completely on board of that's the way we want to go. You really want to execute the movement or the change when you've got about 80% of the people there. If you wait for the last 1 or 2 stragglers to finally admit that this is the way we're going to be going, you're going to miss the opportunity. So not to be afraid to move things forward even if you're missing 2 or 3 folks. You want to obviously have a good, solid majority, upwards around 70 or 80%, but you can't wait for the final 1 or 2 persons either.